Okay, folks, good morning. All right, where we left off. Got a little bit of everything going on. Don't really intend it to be that way, but that's just how it happens. We're working on these T28s, putting them together last, let's see, I guess it would have been early afternoon. And looks like they didn't really glue in there very well. But let me go ahead and put that on there. I'll move them off to the side. Just this one, just happened to notice this. I pretty much don't go back to this desk unless it's on, generally, unless it's on film. I got other stuff to do, so. But we did do this one yesterday. Put the radio antenna. That actually was surprisingly not a pain in the butt. So, and it seems to be kind of durable, so that's a good news. We won't tinker with that too much, but this is the two T28s, the other two T28s I got from that last show. And we got some T35s to do, including, I think it's four of them. I think it's four T3045s. One of them will end up having a radio antenna on top of the turret. But that's something that we're going to do while we're in between drying stages. So we're going to set these guys off to the side. And here are the two figures that I was finishing up. We want to finish those guys up this morning. They can join the rest of the resistance. And hold on one second. Okay, let's see if we can get a zoom in on these guys. Okay, this is interesting because this screen is backwards, but the screen up here on the computer is not. So hopefully you guys aren't seeing this backwards. And this is Paulette and Edward. And she looks kind of like a Hitler Youth girl. A little bit. That was unintentional. She's not fighting for the fascists. So, well, we got to do the basing on them, and that's going to take a little bit of drying. So let's go ahead and throw the chocolate brown on that and move forward to it. At some point, I have misplaced, it's here somewhere, the little thing I put the metal things on so they stick on. So we're going to use this set of clippers as the replacement for that. And let's get the chocolate brown out, which I should have bought more at the store, honestly, yesterday, considering I went to the same store that carries it here. Let's move this out. I guess we need to zoom back out. I don't know what the hell I'm even doing here. There we go. Good morning, Mr. Barnes. Ugh. Snotty. A snotty sound. Okay. Let's use this one right here and see if we can get it to the places that are difficult to reach. I'll take one drop of the magic liquid flow improver. All right, and let's get in here where the sun don't shine. This will make 7 resistance fighters. And a little closer towards being able to run a game with, with good looking figures. I'm going to have to start converting some of my Germans over. Just got to redo the basing on them, that's all. They're already on the pennies. One thing I did to the basing of these figures is I felt like it was lacking something. So when I first was doing the DBA armies, this is the color I would leave on the outside of the stand. Then I went to black, and I liked the black better. And actually, with these 20s, it still didn't seem right. So I actually went with a darker brown on the edge. And I like how that looks. It's an almost black color. So I'm happy with how that turns out. That's how all of them will be. I pulled out, I think I mentioned it yesterday, I pulled out some figures yesterday to see what I could make for Lion Rampant using my 15 millimeter figures. And I planned on playing them as 1 unit equals 1 stand. And then just find a way to mark the casualties, which isn't that difficult to do. But I could actually do 1-to-1 with figures. I have a 12-point force for the Irish, for instance. I could probably field quite a few 12-point forces. I don't know that I could do any 24-pointers, but as long as you're comparing apples to apples, shouldn't be an issue. And I probably need to play that before, while I still remember it. I was trying to think of something the other day, yesterday, about I had just played 12 hours of it last weekend, and I had already forgotten one thing about it. So, if you don't use stuff, you forget it. Use it or lose it. And it also depends on how abstract something is. I was just thinking about the naval game we used to play 30 years ago called Sea Creek 4. There's now a Sea Creek 5 version of it. It's been out for, almost 2 decades. But Sea Creek 4 was the one that we played way back when, because it was the one that was out. And I used to run those games. I bet I could run a game of those. I bet I forget less about that game than I do about DBA. I haven't played DBA in only 6 months. 6 months? 5 months? Something like that. Because Sea Creek's not abstract. So things that aren't abstract make sense. Even though I've played, I don't know, 100 games of Sea Creek and 2,500 games of DBA. DBA is abstract, so my mind doesn't work well that way. I was trying to think, what's the shooting distance of the bow fire again? It's going to answer somebody's question on something. I'm not going to answer any more DBA questions. The idea of getting a question wrong, it just pisses me off. So it's one of the reasons I don't play that game anymore. Probably the biggest reason I don't play anymore is it's just too opposite of the way that I think. And that's frustrating playing something for so long, and then you can't get things right, you know. You still make mistakes, just like there's something wrong with you. And there's many reasons. That's probably the biggest one. Actually, you know what? Now that I mention it, it's probably not the biggest one. The biggest one is I don't have the energy to do this and that, and I haven't done this in almost 20 years, and I was really missing it. So, you know, maybe 20 years from now I'll paint some more ancients or medievals. I'm sure it'll be less time than that, but it won't be this year. Paulette with the Panzerfaust. You know, even some folks I've seen that do much more professional videos than I do get stuff wrong on video. It's really, really frustrating. As a creator, it's very, very frustrating for that to happen. And I just don't have the time to listen to my entire video to see if I meant to say blue and said red. Obviously, it's more subtle things than that, but it has to do with sometimes, you know, your brain is outrunning your mouth, or maybe it's the other way around. And part of it is just kind of the environment you're in all the time. I'm in an environment frequently that I need to get a word in before somebody loses interest / get interrupted, lose my train of thought, what have you. And I tend to feel like I'm rushed all of the time, even though I'm not. Except maybe here. Maybe except doing this right here. This is just kind of, you know, whatever pace. But just normally, if I'm explaining something to somebody, I just feel like there's like this pressure of, man, I got to keep this person's attention, or they're going to go drift off to something else, and then I'm going to lose my train of thought. It's not in my face, but subtly. If you try to dissect, you know, why it is that I feel like I'm always in a hurry to say something. Like I wouldn't be able to be one of those people that narrates a book and speaks really, really slowly. And I think sometimes in doing that, your mouth's outrunning your train of thought. That's what it is. Your mouth outrunning your brain. I'm sure the pendants can pick up any mistakes. Well, I hope they get cancer. Make your own effing videos. You know, the problem I have with it is just I refuse not to be treated the way I treat other people. I don't go on other people's videos and nitpick shit, you know? So my tolerance for it is pretty much nil, you know? Pendants. The pendant. Do you wear them around your neck? Cut their head off and wear it around your neck. That's what we do with pendants. That's what we do with pendants here in the United States. It's different if I got involved in like controversial shit, you know. Then it's like, well, you reap what you sow, right? But I don't reap that shit. I mean, there's lots of stuff that I see in the hobby that I don't like. I don't feel like I've got to like, you know, preach about it. You know, I'm not here to convert people. If you like doing colonials in 28 millimeter scale, I don't care. You know, I'm not going to try to convert you. And you know, if you have your favorite rule set, play your favorite rule set. There's a reason why you play it. Maybe you've tried other things. Maybe everybody in your area wants to play that. It's like, well, I got to play that, or I'm stuck with nobody. There's a guy I watch that does a lot of videos, and I don't personally think he's controversial, but then I have an open mind about a lot of things that, you know, we keep finding new information about history and stuff like that. And he spends a good amount of his videos defending himself like he's on trial. And I'm like, I wouldn't have done that shit, you know. And I've sent him a couple messages like, dude, just keep going. You're doing it. You're doing great. And you're making people think from different points of view. And it's not really current events what you're doing. I mean, it's stuff that happened, you know, 60, 80 years ago. But there's actually a Reddit thread, I think a Reddit thread, where all they do is rip on him. I'm like, Jesus Christ! I mean, he's doing this for free. Oh well. Yeah, he spends a lot of time defending himself. I'm like, I don't really care what people think of me. If you don't like me, well, back at you. It's not a very elite group, people that I don't like. It's not like you get some kind of membership status. Man, I gotta make sure I'm one of the people Tony doesn't like so I can feel special. You're not special at all, man. You're in a big rowboat. And you bring it upon yourselves. You know, I don't naturally go, I don't like that guy. Okay, so that is the base color of these guys. That's drying. Let's go back to the ugly duckling. Heavy on the ugly, light on the duckling. Not a very attractive vehicle in my eyes. And let's go ahead and fill in these colors that now dried. Yeah, I don't know why there's a There's people that I know that love to argue. Why argue if you're not going to convert anybody? And I don't really need to convert anybody. I'm fine with people thinking differently than me. Just, don't get in my shit, right? Do whatever you want to do. But there's some people, and I'm actually surprised, there's people that enjoy arguing. Like, go take the bar, dude. And you're still not going to convince people. Okay? Now that's kind of dry. This is why I'm working on multiple things at once, because I can't finish anything all the way through. And it's fine as long as I don't not go back to it. Your hobby should be about doing what's fun. When it stops being fun, you gotta either quit it or do something different. In my case, it's I needed to change up what I was doing. I was not enjoying it. I actually enjoy making videos, but I don't enjoy, and I don't mean videos like this. I mean, like a legitimate video with editing. The problem is that if I spend a lot of time editing a video, like some of the sites I'm a fan of, I don't have time to do this. And I'm about this. I'm not a video guy. I have a clue when it comes to video stuff because we all watch programming, but you can't make a 30-minute long video that takes you 8 hours or 9 hours or longer to edit. It's not what I do for a living. So, and some editing programs just are not as easy as they should be. The one I've used for a long time is the one that's on my phone. And that's because it's easy to use. It's how it should be. Like, okay, I want this thing to start here, and you move it around, not enter all this code and all that kind of stuff. So it's easy to use. And I got one time that's like, oh, this is like the best editing software and it's free. And let me think of what it's called. It's named after an artist. No, not Picasso. Thank goodness. I don't know if I'd use something named after Picasso. Maybe it's toilet paper. Sorry, not a Picasso fan. What was I going to say? Speaking of Picasso, I knew he was a communist. I didn't know that he was in France in World War II, and they didn't haul him away somewhere. I guess he got lucky. I don't want him hauled away somewhere. I just want him to paint better. Da Vinci Resolve. Da Vinci Resolve is the name of the free program. It is extremely powerful. And it's, it's way too much, way too complicated for mundane people, Let's trim up these turrets, and we're going to pull out the T-35s for a little bit and take a look at them. This was Glenn's suggestion. Remember painting yesterday, you guys want to see something, you want to talk about something in particular, bring it up. If it works within the framework, let's do it, These don't have a lot of flash, but then they have it in some places. It's just kind of I wish they hadn't put it there type thing. Let me give you an example of something that happened last weekend. I'm not going to mention any names, but I walked by a game. I was filming different games that were going on, and I walked by this game in North Africa. It's a North African game, World War II North African game. And I'm listening to these guys play the game, and Mr. Ben, welcome. And it's like an all-tank game. And it seems like it's like a 1941. It is a 1941 game because they called it Operation Crusader. It's an Operation Crusader game. And got Panzer IIIs. They probably had Panzer IVs in it as well. Just tank on tank. Not something exactly that appeals to me. Although it did happen, but some people that like just not using combined arms. But that wasn't the point. The point is I was listening to what they were doing, and they were using vehicles that weren't available at the time. They were talking about a Crusader with a 6-pounder. And the Crusader with a 6-pounder, as far as I know, they didn't come out until Gazala. Gazala was the first place they used them, and there was only like one squadron of them or something like that. It was a very limited amount of them. And this is 6 months before. 6 months in the Desert War is a big deal, okay? 6 months in, there's sometimes totally, especially on the Commonwealth side, tremendous differences in vehicles that were available just within 6 months of the Desert War. It's not like, Russia or something like that. In the Desert War, it's, things change a lot in 6 months. Beginning of the war, the Germans aren't even there. In 6 months, they pushed the British out of Libya. 6 months later, the British puts them halfway out of Libya. 6 months after that, they've surrounded Tobruk again and fighting the Battle of Gazala. 6 months after that, they're back in Tunisia. 6 months is a big deal in the desert. It's not just like, it's very dynamic compared to, other places. Well, I guess Normandy would probably be even worse. You land in first there's nobody in Normandy. 6 months later, France is relieved, It's not like the Eastern Front. You had a period of disillusionment with wargaming for a while about 10 years ago. Well, I'm glad you snapped out of it, man. Got no joy from it for about 6 months. Midlife crisis. Fed up that other folks changed their games and periods so fast. Went my own way, restored enjoyment. That's what I'm doing. And it's not that people just change periods. I've done this same thing for 18 years. It's time to move on to something else. It's keeping me from doing other stuff. If I was still doing what I was doing 6 months ago, I would have gotten one more army done. So instead of getting one army done, I've started working on the French resistance that I haven't worked on in a long time. I got about 70 plus vehicles done. I'm talking about different stuff. I'm looking up different history. I'm enjoying it a lot more. And whenever I get around to playing a game, I know I'm going to be playing a game that's not weirdly abstract. So yeah, sometimes you got to do your own thing. If you're a person that goes to the gym and you have a gym partner, it's great. It's great motivation to go there. And I mean, I had a friend of mine in my early 20s. We'd go all the time. Not all the time. Yeah, we went frequently, 3-4 times a week. Something would come up and you wouldn't go. And it was like, okay, well, there's my excuse not to go. Then you wouldn't go. Then you just kind of get out of the habit. So sometimes if you just make a pact with yourself, it's a lot easier to stay, where you're going. You just got to, you can't just start working on a bunch of different stuff or you just don't finish it. You want to finish things and feel good about, your accomplishment. You do seem more enthusiastic compared to this team out here. Yeah, I can do whatever the hell I want. Yeah, I got really burned out. I really put all my heart and soul in trying to promote the game that's not even mine. And people just don't take to it. It's not that people don't take to it, okay? There's enough people that are interested in playing DVA. They just don't show up for events, And it's not, even post-COVID, even pre-COVID. Yeah, I'm going to be there. And then they don't show up. So my happiness is no longer going to, you guys are loyal, you show up all the time. But, if Jeffrey doesn't show up for a week, I don't feel like I'm, why am I wasting my time doing this? And it's happened for a long time. It's not like it's just 1 year. Like, man, you got to give it some time. I've, you know, and yeah, it's time to move on. I didn't play any games at the show. This guy that supposedly he had disappeared for a long time, and all of a sudden he wanted to get back in it. And I'm not a fan of people that are flighty. In other words, that they're here today, gone tomorrow. I'm not that way. I'm many things, but that's not one of the things I am. I don't like to say I'm going to do something and then not show up. I mean, sometimes things happen, emergencies and stuff like that, but emergencies can't happen every other time, you know. And one thing that really kind of bummed me out is our local game group. You never knew who the hell was going to show up. Like, okay, who's coming? Who's coming on Monday? So I'd put it out there. Some people would respond. One guy's like, I'm not coming. At the last minute he can. You can't plan anything, you know. I can't work on alternate rules for things if I don't know who's going to be there, because some people have been there for some of that. It's just like effort, you know. It's just too much effort, you know. Hobby should be therapeutic, not stress causing. So somebody else can do that now. I actually don't miss going on playing on Mondays. I don't. You know, they've got other people to play with. It's not like their entire joy relies on me. But they played. They had a big session of DBA stuff at the show. And sure enough, they had, I don't know, 4 to 6 people at the most playing any of their events, just like I used to do. And they spent a whole lot of effort. And they haven't posted any of the scores anywhere. You know, it's just too much effort to do all that and then post the scores. And you didn't post it here. Can you please post the scores? I'm like, oh my God, I'm everybody's bitch. I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. I've done it. Now, I've said it before, playing games is not therapeutic. That doesn't mean I mind playing games. I'm just saying that, you know, this is where the therapy comes. People say, oh, you should just play. You should just let somebody else run it. See, that's the thing. I actually didn't get tired. I didn't get tired of doing it. I got tired of spending so much time that this is all I'm doing, and then nobody else is. It's not worth the effort. No one else is reciprocating. My show, but all I gotta do is show up. So, like Jeffrey said, you know, you just do your own thing, man. No harm, no foul. I went to the show, first time in 18 years. I never played DBA at a show. And I didn't miss it. I didn't want to. I didn't want to play it. Good Lord, what's going on in there? It feels like it's half full, but maybe it isn't. Well, I got another one of these. Let's put this somewhere we can hold her upside down. You know, I don't mind doing the effort as long as, you know, as long as it's worth it. Preparation for a game can be actually more rewarding than the actual game. Oh, that's another thing. I don't want to put a game on at a show again. I'm rushed with time. I played one game with 28 millimeter figures, and the guy was playing. He's asking the GM who provided everything, "Hey, can I move these guys here?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he just grabbed his 28 millimeter figures, like a dozen of them. He grabbed them like this, like a claw, and then just dumped them. And the GM was just like, "What the?" And I'm like, I'm not, you know, no, no. And I don't want to play a game with whoever shows up. There's some people that I don't want to play a game with. And I'm really not, I'm just have a good attitude. There's some people out there that don't have a good attitude, There was a game that was put on by two people that I never want to play. No, not put on by two people. Mitch put on a game. I noticed him. He was playing a DBA game because he had to cover for somebody who at the last minute didn't show up. And he's putting on a similar game, and he had like 8 players, and 2 of those players I never want to play a game with again. They just have the wrong attitude. One of them has a wrong attitude all the time, and the other guy is one of those assholes that asks a question, and while you're answering the question, he's already asking you another question. He's got a condition. I don't know what the condition is, but maybe it's being a dickhead. But he's I don't want to deal with him again. I've dealt with him many times. I'm like, you're the one that's interested in the question, and you think you want to listen to the answer? Can you do this? And while you explain, well, you can do this or whatever. What about this other thing? Like, I'm not done answering the first thing. Fortunately, most people aren't that way. But I said, if I don't like you, you did it to yourself. You brought it upon yourself. Okay. That thing is done. What can we proceed with at this point? What is the stage here? That is still a little wet. We don't want to dry brush that. Let's mess with some T3045s. No, we've got those ready to go too. Okay, set this off to the side. Okay, here's one. Here's the one that apparently is just the hull. It's funny, but it came with the turret stuff on it. Okay. And instructions. We're going to get rid of all these boxes. I'm not a minimalist, but man, when we buy stuff, people just give you too much like packaging and shit. You got to go in the cycle. It's really wasteful. Probably the biggest wasteful thing is chargers for phones, man. There was a point where we had all the same phone chargers for the whole family, and then all of a sudden that went sideways. It's just a waste of resources. You ever been to somebody's house that doesn't throw shit away? They got all kinds of stuff stacked all over the place. Maybe that's your house. I don't know. It drives me crazy. And I'm not, I wish I was a little bit more anal retentive than I was, but I don't like chaos. And the white one, the white elephant. Okay. The preparation for a game can be rewarding. It is if the people appreciate it. Okay, so this is what we're looking at here. I'm going to, yeah, it's 4 of them, as I suspected. So this one I can't really use for anything because it didn't come with any turrets, but I'm not really complaining because I got all 6 of these vehicles, or 5.5, depending on how we want to look at it, for $5. So. And yes, they're 1/87 scale, but they work and paint up just fine. Alright, I'm going to need a little place for these guys to go to hang out in. And this is going to be the place right here. Is a glitchy screen bothering you guys? Now look at the screen and it'll be like, it'll like hang up. I guess the sound is running smooth, but the video doesn't always run smooth. If all these instructions are the same, we're going to get rid of all of them except one. Yeah, I don't even really need them, but. Okay. And they don't have the same turret. This one actually has a little red star on the turret that the other three don't have. So I want to make that one the command one. That one's going to have the radio antenna on it. The other ones will not. The other three will not. It's fine. Okay, good. That's good to know. All right, this will just be a spare hole. Come on. You know, I got this many. What am I going to do? Not paint them? You know, might as well paint them. Might as well do something with them. They paint up pretty fast. Make sure these guys are attached well enough. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to take it apart or anything. I mean, it has such minimal amount of flash, if any. It's mostly on the turrets, honestly. All right, where is this thing right here? They make a conical turret version as well. The problem with the conical turret version as well, I didn't get any. But besides that, it actually has these machine guns that you actually have to glue on. And they're kind of a pain because the turret is round. And the T-28, I've one T-28 with a conical turret. Or a more streamlined turret. And it was a pain to put that stuff on. Because it kind of hit at a funny angle. You guys ever sit at the game table with somebody? Maybe it's somebody you only played once. Maybe it's somebody you play with all the time. And you just got to the point where I don't want to play a game with that guy. If I have to play a game, and I'm not talking about anybody in my Monday game group here locally. Fortunately, none of those people are that way. I'm talking like at a convention. You're like, oh, there's that guy. I'm not playing a game with him. And if you've encountered that, what is it about that particular person? No names. What is it about that particular person that you're just not going to deal with anymore? The other thing I really dislike, and this didn't happen to me. This has happened before. This didn't happen to me last convention, but it's one of my pet peeves. And this happens in the workplace sometimes, and it happens on the game table. You've got somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience, so you figure you'll help them out, and they act like you're trying to fuck them over. So if I'm trying to help somebody out, and they are getting defensive, then I'm not going to help them out anymore. You know, have fun, drown. You know, they jumped off a ship, right? And you have a life preserver, and you're like, hey, let me throw you this life preserver. Ah, you're just doing that so I look stupid with this around my neck. Fine, fucking drown. I had a great experience in one game. There was this guy who was a Facebook acquaintance. I'd never met the guy before, but we had we went to the same cons, and I recognized the guy, and I guess he just wanted to talk about the hobby, which, you know, I'll take anybody's friend request as long as, you know, we're positive and you're not on a tirade, arguing about stuff. And I got to play a game with this guy, and I freaking loved playing with him. He had a great attitude. And we were kind of over on the side of this battle, kind of doing our own thing, and I was kind of in the same mode that I normally do in videos where I'm talking about what I'm going to do before I do it. So we're kind of learning the game, and it's, you know, I wasn't super experienced in playing Lion Rampant, but I was telling him why I was doing stuff. He was kind of new to it, and we had a great repertoire playing it. I don't know why this thing is not digging into it. But I don't go to game shows to put up with bullshit. You know. And I played the other game. Everybody at the table was awesome. And it was off-color joke friendly. Which, I'm sorry, that's a big part of my gaming. I like making fun of just about everything. I think I make fun of everything except the Holocaust. Can't go there. Okay? Not cool. Pretty much everything else is on the table. I don't know what the hell is in this Russian plastic, but it's not enjoying going into that. Maybe. Wow, that one's severely large. Well, see if we can get ourselves into trouble. I don't have to go very deep. That should be good enough. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, here's that, the pieces as I fix them, we're going to just move them onto that little container. And sometimes the pieces can be way too unaligned that it's not worth trying to fix them. For example, the entire side of this turret, you could probably make it out there. I would have to scrape the entire turret to get it to line up. I'm just going to say that's just shitty Soviet welding. So we'll try to clean it up a little bit. Yeah, there's enough of a height difference. I'm going to be scraping on that for a couple hours. It's just not worth it. Shitty Soviet welding. That's just not even worth messing with. I had another guy at another show many years ago. There's one guy that I was trying to get him to play DBA for a long time. And he came to a show and he signed up for a game, and he ended up being on the other side of me. On the opponent's side. I wasn't faced up against him because it was like three people on three people. But the commander of the other force was just an asshole and turned him off for the game. You know, maybe he didn't. Maybe he shouldn't have. Maybe he should have stuck it out and realized that, you know, not every player is like this guy, but this one particular guy turned him off from the game. This guy had been wanting to get to try DBA for a long time, and we couldn't be on the same side. Something happened where we showed up later, and they needed one person on one side and one on the other. And just turned him off from ever playing the game again. But that particular person is someone that had a habit of just being that way with everything they played. I think they had health issues and they took it out on everybody else. I need to get a bigger waste basket in here. There's not that much stuff in there, but just seems like stuff's always falling out of it. Just those few little boxes for these tanks. By the time we're done doing this cleanup, should be able to finish those stands with the partisans. Nothing? None of you guys had bad experiences at a convention with people? Had another guy that, and it's really few and far between. It's not like, you know, every other person's this way. Most people are decent individuals. There's another guy that, massive rules lawyer, but then he moves excruciatingly loose. And you can't call him on it. But that person's the same, those kind of people are the same way in all of their dealings, not necessarily on a game table. There's people that are just dishonorable. Say one thing and do something else. I don't know if these things are even made anymore. I found out about these things in the early 90s when the Soviet Union first fell. And some of these more unusual vehicles like a T-28, T-35s, they weren't available in 1/72nd scale at the time. Or if they were, they might have been like vacuform or something really weird. You ever want to build something really frustrating? Vacuform is where it's at. I took one look at that and no, that's just crazy. That's just crazy. Maybe there's people that actually enjoy that, but I'm not one of them. The only thing that's worse than that, actually, I've never built a vacuum form kit. I've looked at it and been like, "Oh, run away, run away." Resin, the kits that have like resin tracks, like separate tracks, it's a one-piece track, but it's resin, and you're supposed to put it in hot water and bend it. No, don't count on me for that. That's worse than rubber band tracks. Unless the rubber band tracks are too short, then that's a problem. But the solution with the rubber band tracks is just use a stapler and just put the things on a stand. If there's any issues with it, just hide it. Hide it in the goop. I'm gonna leave this thing alone. I think it's good as it is. I can't do that. I tend to be strict when it disadvantages me and loose when it helps the opponent. It's a game. Why take it so seriously? You know why? Because there's some people that I don't want to use that terminology because it sends the wrong message. I was going to say lose at life. And I'm not going to say that because they're unhappy all the time with their life. And they have to make up for it on the game table. That's what I think is what it is. They just psych themselves out of it or whatever. I don't know. Like any game that involves die rolling, I've known people that are like, oh, I'm the worst die roller or whatever. I get excited when there's die rolling. I don't know if I wouldn't be able to do it now, but if I have a feeling that I roll better than most people. So I have a positive attitude when it comes to that. And some people are just, I don't know, they have all kinds of bad luck or whatever, and they're trying to make up for it on the game table. Just like I was saying, this one guy was just a prick all the time, but he had health issues, and I don't know, because if he had health issues, he's like, man, maybe there's something else that I'm good at. But what I like to say is the other guy's trying to win too. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, and don't be a poor loser and don't be a poor winner. Unless you never want to play with these people again. The other guy's trying to win too. So, but most people aren't that way. Man, but the ones that are make up for everybody else, don't they? I did see one person wearing a German unit t-shirt, only one. It wasn't an SS unit. It was Grossdeutschland. It's fine, doesn't bother me. It's kind of weird, I don't want to see somebody wearing a hammer and sickle shirt either. It's the same side of two different coins. Oh yeah, this is a much better drill bit. Oh yeah. This must be heavier duty or something. Yeah, I don't want to play a game and be a cakewalk. What's the point? What's the point if you know you're going to win? I'm a big fan of playing a scenario that's not worrying about if it's balanced, not worried if it's point-wise. Just play it twice. See how you did with them, see how your opponent did with them. That's it. No points-based system is perfect. Man, this stuff takes time to do. Like, oh, let me just clean the tank out. Man, it takes time. And I could be doing a much more anal retentive job than I am already. But at some point, it's a point of diminishing returns. I'm going to stop on the next two. We'll go back to them. Let's go ahead and give these guys the next stage of the dry brushing here. U.S. Field Drab. Where is the little... There she is. Cocked dice. You guys see my video. You know my opinion of cocked dice is. Cocked dice aren't the problem. The problem is people are cheaters and aren't consistent. You know, just play every dice. Now there's some dice I've seen it. They land on an end. You know, well, you don't know what size that's supposed to be. Okay. But barring that, which is an unusual occurrence, play all the dice. And that's why cocked dice are, you know, I'll see somebody like, oh, let me re-roll this. I said, no problem, but you're going to be re-rolling all cocked dice. Just be consistent. I happen to play them all. It's just a waste of time, you know. And sometimes they favor you, sometimes they don't. And some guy you'll play against him is like, you know he's being nefarious, and he wants to re-roll it, and he re-rolls worse. Ha! Suck on that, cheater. Just be consistent. Okay, I already put some of that down there. Okay, where is the napkin that I sent away? But the only rule on dice that's a no-go. If it rolls off the table, it's not in play. You got to be on the table. I think Mitch actually won an award, an unofficial award from the GM of the game we were playing for the worst die rolling ever. Like, you know, he'd roll the dice and they went all over the damn table. Just imagine him with 12 dice. They were everywhere. You know, they don't have to go far as long as they mix up properly. I'll never play a game again that doesn't have pre-measuring. It just saves so many arguments. I believe in pre-measuring and then being vocal about what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to move these guys, and look, I'm just outside of bow range or whatever it is that you're doing. I didn't come here to have an argument with people, you know. I came here to have a good time, roll some dice, and have a cool narrative develop. One game I was playing, people on both sides were getting into it. No, these guys weren't within range. You know, it's like stuff I hadn't seen in 18 years. Did I ever have any experience with hovels or Caliber Books 15 millimeter terrain. I'm trying to gauge if they match up well for 15 millimeter skirmish or they're too out of scale. Okay, so Caliber. Okay, Caliber Books 15 millimeter terrain. I'm not familiar with them. Hovels, I have one thing from Hovels. It is the 15 millimeter church from Borodino. I can't get it right now. But it's all one piece. I wouldn't use it for skirmish because it has no interiors. I think it scales up okay. I remember their stuff was really nice. Caliber Books, yeah, I don't know nothing. I don't know much about Caliber Books other than they took over minifigs, I think. But I've never seen any of their terrain. This piece, I don't know who makes it. It's actually a really nice piece. I'm gonna say it's Musket Miniatures, but I'm probably not correct in that. I bought this a long time ago. This is a 15 millimeter building. This is a 15 millimeter building, but it is a very large 15 millimeter building. So I just decided to use it for a 20. It's kind of like a little shed. If this is a 15 millimeter building, you're hardly going to be able to see out of those windows unless you're using a step stool. So I just painted this thing up, and this is actually really nice. Don't even know who makes it. I don't know if that color is helpful. Like I said, I want to say it's Musket Miniatures, but they're out of business anymore. Musket Miniature stuff tends to be this color. So it is resin. This is all one piece. There's nothing to add on to it. And this was one piece, the floor, and the roof is all one piece. So there's not too many sub-assembly things to do. But this is a 15 millimeter piece. I'm like, this works for 20s. You know, I've used it a few times. Sniper likes to hang out up here. You know, cause trouble. Sniper, an MG 34 or 42 that likes to be pesky. But I'm not familiar with Caliber Book stuff at all. Hovels was all the rage. The Hovels stuff is very robust, if I remember correctly. In other words, it's not just, you know, a corner like this. It's like, you know, it's not going to fall apart on you. So the Borodino churches, I got it for and it's too small. It's too small for 20s, but I don't know. At that time, there just wasn't that many things in 20s, and I decided to get it and haven't done anything with it. I guess at some point, I'm probably going to paint it and put it in a backdrop. But there's some things that are weird scales. Like I've seen some churches. I've seen some Russian churches, for example, that the footprint maybe is like, you know, this big, and it's taller than its footprint. And it's just, I don't know if that's the style it's done in, but it's very, you know, cartoonish. Looking at the Hovels Waterloo buildings as they'd worked through for World War II. I think I'll slide in an order. Order from Amazon, then it's easy to return. No, I know you can't do that. Yeah. You know, even if you did have a building that was, say, solid, and you want separate rooms, get you some cardboard, cut out the footprint, and then put it off to the side. And you can, you know, fight in the building, and you can make your own, you can make a floor plan almost like a role-playing game. And this is where, you know, you put your feet, when you walk in, you're all of a sudden here, and you're in between that. That's what I plan on doing. And although most of my buildings are probably don't have that problem, but I'm a big fan of using this cardboard stuff. You know, you can even paint it, you know, or print something on a computer. Have them fight there when they've moved inside the structure. You don't have to worry about if the roof comes off. I didn't know Hovels was still around. That was the rage, man. That was the rage 20, 30 years ago. And the stuff I've seen by them is pretty nice. I don't know how the Waterloo thing is in particular. Maybe people that were Napoleonic people would be like, you can't use that. That's the La Haye Saint or whatever the hell it's called. Waterloo buildings. I don't recognize them because I'm not a nappy guy. I'm not very nappy. Like I didn't know until like 2 years ago that the Battle of Waterloo was on my birthday. Like they never even sent me a birthday card. People that fought there. Skirmish might be a little misleading. I'm going to be chain of command and eventually Star Grunt 2, World War II variants. One eye set up the vehicles. Yeah, chain of command seems like it would be decent. If I didn't have this rule set, I'd probably take chain of command and add more detail to it. There's several things that I like about chain of command, and adding stats and making the vehicles more, I'm going to say complex, but really flavorful is what I'm looking for, is really easy to do. If you're a vehicle person and you have everybody has the information now with the internet. That part's really easy to do. It's the mechanics and the meat and potatoes and the flow of it that is difficult to get right. I've actually never used vehicles in this game system. Never. I've read the rules. They look solid. But if something doesn't play right, I'm going to change them, It's one thing to play a game that plays slow. It's another thing that you play a game that spends too much time on things that either don't deserve it or people aren't interested in. Or that most people aren't interested in. And the example I always use is naval combat. And I'm talking about, big dreadnought, World War II through pre-dreadnought to World War II type of surface naval combat. You can't spend a lot of time trying to figure out hits that never land. That just eats up a lot of time, and most of the time you're trying to figure out hits that never even happen. So come up with a simple system that makes you determine whether or not the salvos even got close. Okay? And then another simple system to actually realize whether you actually straddled the target. And then after you've eliminated 90% of the shells, you can focus the detail on the ones that actually do land on the target. I don't know how I feel about Chain of Command being a skirmish game. It kind of is and it kind of isn't. And that's not a knock against it. I've played it a couple times. There's a lot to like about it. I don't like that it's a codex type game. That's actually probably my biggest gripe about it. And it's D6. I'm not a fan of D6 games, but I think it works okay for it. I'm not a fan of D6 games, says someone who's played a D6 game for 18 years. Well, again, I was skeptical, but it worked. I'm actually a bigger fan of a D6 game than a 2D6 game. Not a fan of the bell curve. And Lion Rampant has the bell curve. Again, it's more abstract. A +1 is not always the same value. Depends on what the core number is. Okay. Let's rinse that. The colors that we use for the brick are right there. Cavalry brown. I tend to not make that mistake that naming horses after the Three Cross Hill. I've probably said it before, but some people can only say it that way. Harvey Gerndt. Welcome back, sir. Naval combat, hard one to get right. Started with airfix ships playing on the lawn some 50 years ago, still playing with 1/3000 scale models. That's all we used to do in the late 80s, early 90s. Sea Creek 4 is what we used. We'd range estimate. F that. That's more work than being at work. Play on the floor. I can get on the floor, and I can get up from the floor, but it's uncomfortable, so why? You know? The problem with naval combat is, the biggest problem with naval combat is that for the most part there's a minimum or no terrain. And it just becomes, the game just becomes a lot more two-dimensional. You know, it's just the nature of what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. And even with naval combat, there's just so many different aspects of it. There's people that are really into sailing ships, or into pre-dreadnoughts, or I don't know anybody who's like really into the modern combat and doesn't do anything else. But the sailing ships don't appeal to me, mainly because they all look the same to the untrained eye. You know, Napoleonic sailing ships, and I mean, they look the same per nation. You can't just look at a 74 gun and go, oh, that's British or that's French. You know, I mean, about the only thing you can do is, you know, look at the gun ports, whichever color they're painted. There's not enough there for me to go on. You know, doesn't do it for me. All right, we better put this here so that we're touching this at a minimum. Minimum of touchy-touchy. With naval, it's the weather that creates the terrain, different sea states that change movement rates or visibility. Sure, it can. And you can have some terrain, but you gotta almost have to do like what-if battles. We did a ABDA campaign I was running way back when, early 1942. And there's islands there. But the range estimating doesn't work because the premise is that as your ships get closer, it's easier to tell what the range is between them, and that's not always the case. So your percentile of hitting is just totally off. The problem with the weather being the terrain is there's not physically anything to see when you're playing the game. Like if you're playing a computer simulation, you can see, oh man, it's really foggy. I could barely see out there. But when you're on the tabletop, somebody's telling you, hey, the visibility is this. It doesn't look any different to you than a normal game. Instead of being like, oh yeah, I can see there's a little group of woods or something out there. And maybe and there's just a lot of people that just aren't interested in naval combat. I don't know why. I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of people that they walk by a naval combat game, never really thinking about it. I'm not a fan of games that are just all aircraft because they end up being very not my sort of thing. I played a game that the last convention we were on a ship and we had to defend against Japanese kamikazes. That was a fun game. Kind of simple. What kind of naval combat you like, Harvey? Is there a particular period of time that you're more interested than others? I grew up reading about all the surface raiders and stuff in my early teens, so I definitely my preference is World War II, Mediterranean, and Atlantic. Jacques, welcome back. Oh! I got a guy for you. I think I do. Here you are. There he is right here. Jacques now enters the room. All my French partisans all have first names instead of last names on them. Changing to sea state, use areas of different shades of blue paper. Use areas of dark and blue paper together with background gives you 3 areas of sea state. The ships are beautiful, but the aircraft in that scale are just too small for my aging eyes. Yeah, aircraft are just something that ruins naval games. I'm sorry. I want to play naval games. I want to see, battleships blowing things up with shells. But I like World War II because the ships have camouflage and look significantly different from each other. We're working on Maquis now. So we've got They're going to have some vehicles here. I think I'm going to take some of these. I'm going to camouflage, like this one in particular. I'm probably going to, oh, I got to zoom a little bit more out more. Obviously, we're going to change the rims so that it's not like all like super shiny. But we're probably going to paint this probably like a black or a really dark green or something. And I'm probably going to camouflage it like the Germans confiscated for something else. Then the Maquis confiscated it from them. So probably put some free French symbols on it or something like that. But anyhow, I think resistance stuff is perfect for skirmish. Perfect. Especially because these guys have a totally different equipment available. You know, I got a bunch of guys with Sten guns. This lady has some kind of a semi-automatic pistol. And this guy has, Edward over here has a Garand. I was thinking it was a French rifle, but no, it's a Garand. So, yeah, good stuff. So, I have used aircraft. One of my favorite ships to use, if you're going to have aircraft, is the carrier Eagle. It doesn't carry so many aircraft that it really dominates the environment. 20 millimeter, yes. Yep. I'm a devout 20 millimeter World War II person for skirmish. That was the scale way back when. And I'm not that old, but that's what we had, and that's what I like. I'd still do 20 millimeter now. You know, it's just easy to pick up vehicles that are close to the scale at the toy store if you need to. The only vehicle I have that I never built is something I purchased from somebody, and specifically for this, I've been about 20 years ago. And it's a French taxi. Well, I don't know if it's a French taxi, but it's painted like a French taxi. This particular person did that. And yeah, these guys, I'm going to have to put it on a base just for consistency. So, yeah, a little matchbox, whatever the hell it is. I don't know what it is because the person that made it decided to grind out the name of what the manufacturer was it. You play most periods of the 20th century, pre-dreadnought, World War I, World War II. World War I is probably my favorite. I'm lucky to know a Russo-Japanese enthusiast. I like World War I as well, but I unabashedly like the Germans in World War I. I'm sympathetic to them. Not sympathetic to them. I like their ships. It's not that I don't like I like the Royal Navy in World War II. I like the High Seas Fleet in World War I. But actually, that's not true. I like a lot of navies in World War II. The thing about the British Navy in World War II is they just have such cool names, you know, and camouflage schemes are all over the place, and they were everywhere. So. Yeah, Eagle's not too bad. Eagle's only going to have 18 swordfish at most. And 3 fighter aircraft. So, you know. As a person who's a fan of the battleships and not the carriers so much, it's nice when you have a carrier on the field that could possibly get shelled by the enemy battleships. That's always nice to see that happening. Yeah, taxi's pretty cool. So I think one thing that's really interesting is you could play these partisan guys. You could roll to see who's on your team, and I'm talking about multiple people playing the Maquis, and the GM controls the bad guys, and you could have different alliances. There could be sub missions within the mission, like, you know, you need to go and blow up a train track, but you also wouldn't mind if, you know, Rene over there on the other team gets it because, you know, he's a communist or something like that, and you're not a and your guys aren't communists. So you could have like a game within the game, you know, and because there's all kinds of allegiances within the Maquis. One thing I was reading, and I mentioned this a couple times, I was reading a book and I was surprised that they were doing weapons airdrops for the fighters before Normandy, to drop weapons and supplies behind enemy lines. So when the invasion happened, the partisans could cause all kinds of disruption and stuff like that, which they did. But what was happening along the way is they were using the weapons against each other. So they were dropping all this hardware, and they were getting into, the anarchists were fighting the Free French, and they were getting into all these little, arguments, with each other, and they weren't really expecting that to happen. Using your own rules, I like to play variations around the period from Scarborough Raid to Dogger Bank. That is a good period. Yeah, it's a good period. Yeah, the what if stuff. That's what I always used to do with the naval stuff. Is stuff that almost happened. Like maybe the ship sailed, and you could tell exactly who was in what force, and they just didn't encounter each other, but they could have. So I'm not just throwing stuff together that was unlikely to happen. I mean, this could have happened. Just somebody decided to turn at the last minute or hit a. And turn back, or All right, let's get a little bit of. We got any of this white alive? Next deviates the decision-making phase. Try to add some of that decision-making in your naval games. There's a lot of things that make it interesting. I don't play it anymore, but I had a lot of good games of it, and there's a reason why it kept me interested for as long as it did. I think the thing that makes it the most interesting is you can't do everything you want, but yet you're able to see everything. So it's almost like you're like a god, and your little bastards won't listen to you to do everything you want, and I like that. But I also like the fact that you have access to all the information. So maybe you're playing an opponent who's having all kinds of tribulations, but because of fog of war, you as a player in most game systems don't even know that. You don't know that they're rolling terrible or they're not getting actions. You just think that they're incompetent or whatever. And I think it makes a better game when both people are aware of everything that's going on, and just your troops just don't listen to each other. And it was kind of the first game that I played that kind of had that mentality. And I think it works. There's nothing worse than playing a game that has, especially if it has a limited amount of time. You have to go and ask the GM, "Hey, come outside. I want to ask you this." Or you want, those like diplomacy moments where you have to, "Hey, come here. Let me talk to you about this." And you just go through so much time. And I think I'm probably going to run this as everybody's on one side. I think it works a lot better. Um, but not at a show. I don't want the stuff to disappear or people damaging shit or. I don't think you could play a game like Advanced Squad Leader anymore, where it's like, oh, this is the phase where you do all the firing. Okay, let me go grab some coffee. Because it basically makes people disinterested in it. You lose interest. In this, it's you get one action, and you don't know who's going to go next. So you need to stay nearby because it could be your turn next. A good what if is raid by Hitler's scouting force towards the Belgian coast And crowning the pre-dreadnought fleet the Royal Navy had guarding the Thames approaches. I always would want to do, we don't have the information for this, and I don't know how in the hell you would be able to do it, but the part of the Battle of Jutland at night where the Germans cross through the British formation, that would just be in-freaking-sane. But, where do you get the damage state of the German ships? I guess you could probably roll randomly and do that, but that would be insane. Dreadnoughts firing at a destroyer at point blank range and shit like that. That's the kind of stuff I want to see. Potential ramming. That's a good narrative. That's excellent narrative. I hate doing Dogger Bank. Dogger Bank is just like, there's no way for the Germans to win. They got to blow up a couple ships right off the bat, and then okay, now it's on. It's like it's almost as bad as the Battle of Falklands. Almost as bad as the Battle of Falklands. I would love to play. I would love like a movie or something like that. But movies would just ruin shit. They paint a picture that isn't really what's happening. But I would love to have like a movie or something that goes into the. I want to say it's the Dresden that after the Battle of Falklands was hiding in all those, we'll call them fjords in Chile. I have I have one book in particular on it that is just epic. It is absolutely epic. They go and hide in one of these places, and there's a fisherman that came in and saw something he didn't need to see, and they'd report back, and then the British would send ships, and the Germans would find out that they'd found out, and they're trying to get a head start on them. Just some crazy stuff. Really cool stuff. The state of the fleet's can be found in Campbell's book, Jutland Analysis. I have it. Really? Down to each individual ship? Yeah, that's definitely a game you'd have to play blind. But that's just crazy. And that really happened. Man, the Germans got lucky as shit, too. I mean, just like... I've read 3 books on Jutland, I think. And not because of that battle in particular, but... Yeah, because doing the battle from the beginning, it's like, what's going to happen. So, as the German player, you're like, well, we're not falling for that. And as a British player, well, we're not falling for that either. But if you've already got a fist fight that's already developed and you're at close range, well, time to get it on. Have you seen that video that, I want to say I don't know who it is. I want to say it's that Drakniffel guy, or however the hell you say his name. It may not be him. That he takes a model of the Seydlitz. It's big. It's like 600 scale or whatever. And he draws on there where all the shell hits goes. And that's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting where he showed where all the hit locations were on all the on that ship. I think he did that with a couple of different ships. But Seydlitz is definitely one of them. Seydlitz. I've always called it Seydlitz. Probably wrong. I only speak Blitzkrieg German, so if I get it wrong, well, you know. Don't blame me. I'm only a wargamer. Okay, while that dries, and we do need to let that dry for a little bit, we'll go back to some T-35s. We do not want grass and stuff sticking to the outside of the stand. That's not good. That's not what we want to do. Okay. Am I out of beverage? I'm out of beverage. I will be right back. And I will put my reminder here so I don't forget to turn my microphone back on. All right. Let's go ahead and clean these up as well. I'm pronouncing Seydlitz correctly. Okay. Yeah, S-E-Y doesn't seem like it should be Psy. It could be. I remember we played a game a long time ago. We were doing like a Jutland type game, and I got all kinds of people playing the game that weren't really into it. And then, they were making fun of everything. They were like calling it, instead of Von der Tann, they were calling it Vandekamps, which is a brand of, I think, baked beans or something like that. Or at least, I don't even know if they're still around anymore. I'm like, maybe having a little too much fun. Vandekamps, though. And first of all, Vandekamps would be a Dutch ship, not a German ship. One thing I dislike about German World War I ships is I will not paint the funnel red on some of them that had them for identification. I think it looks silly. That's one of my I'll never do type things. I won't do that. I won't paint stars on top of British or Commonwealth vehicles in the Second World War that they used in late '44. It just looks wrong. They didn't do it on every vehicle, so I'm just doing the vehicles that didn't have it. How about that? difficult to get out because you can't get a good grip on this thing. Slippery. We'll enlarge those holes before we put it together. It can stand to be a little looser. Man. Bastard. I'm not dealing with that again. That's all it should take. Yep. Perfect. Yep. All right, this thing flash free. Yep. We'll need some, there's some parts we got to glue to them, but I don't pronounce everything right, but I pronounce it better than most people. I know that's not saying a whole lot. I remember when I was a kid, I was playing a game. I was playing a Sea Creek 4 game. And we were fighting some surface raiders, some German surface raiders of the Second World War. Never heard anybody pronounce Scharnhorst any other way than Scharnhorst. They were pronouncing the sister of the Scharnhorst as Gnisnu. Like, what in the hell is wrong with you? Gnisnu. And sometimes you'll hear somebody pronounce something that is just totally different than the way you've pronounced it your whole life. And I came across this on a video that I watched on someone's channel that I'm a big fan of. I don't know that he has a habit of pronouncing things incorrectly, but I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and sometimes you're like, really? Why did you say that way? But this particular person was talking about this airfield that was featured prominently in battles of Operation Crusader. That a lot of fighting happened on it, and it would make a really interesting board to have this particular airfield with aircraft in various stages of charred remains and tanks knocked out and stuff, and fighting amongst them. This particular airfield, I had always seen it the way it's spelled. I would call it Sidi Rezai. I wouldn't even think of calling it someone else, and the particular person called it Sidi Rezai. And I just don't know how you get that I sound with the letters that are there, but maybe they're more knowledgeable than I am. But sometimes you'll see something that's just pronounced in a totally different way than we've always seen it, and sometimes it's really distracting. One person I think does an excellent job in pronouncing everything is Dan Jones. Dan Jones, a historian. I've listened to a couple of his books, and I think he makes a really good attempt to pronounce things correctly in Spanish. I can speak for Spanish. I can't speak for French, but another example that I apparently got wrong is reading about the Crusaders, the area that the crusading states were in. I had always seen it the way it's spelled. I'm like, oh, that's Outremer. Nope, and it's actually Outremer. But once I saw that and put two and two together, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll just call it Outremer for now. Or just call it the Crusader states. But I'm not a natural French speaker. I actually didn't really think that was a French word. I don't know why I didn't put two and two together. I've only been reading Crusader stuff for the last couple decades. Somebody asked me last weekend what my main area of interest was, and within, say, the DBA time period. I don't know that I have one. I don't know that I have. I'm a big fan of heraldry. As I like to say, that might be because I have a cool one. If you have a shitty crest, maybe you don't care for heraldry so much. It's like embarrassing or whatever, but nobody gets to choose that. Just like nobody gets to pick who your mother is. Nobody gets to pick what your coat of arms are. You know, you might have some guy that's bent over playing a flute out of his ass. You know, you probably don't want to show that to the whole world. But I am a big fan of heraldry. I'm a big fan of painting it. So from a creative aspect, I do like the Middle Ages for that. So many turrets. Holy smokes. So many turrets. The one thing I can't handle, well, I'm not can't handle, I'll never do, and I'm not calling, and this is not picking sides, because I don't really have a side pick on this one. And it's kind of current events, and I don't really get into current events. Mainly because I don't think that many times we know what's going on. We don't know what's going on, some things that happened 80 years ago. I'm just not going to pronounce the capital of the Ukraine in the new way. It's been the old way forever. It doesn't mean I'm pro-Russian. It's just They started before Russia. That was the first. That was way back when, in the, I guess it would be the 10th century. And they pronounced it a certain way back then. It was written a certain way back then. And now they want to change it. Nah, I don't like how it looks, honestly. Got a few too many Y's and for my taste. Just sounds weird to me. Because they came before the Russians. And they called that city what it was called the whole time before the Russians. Okay. It does not mean I'm a fan of little short dictators. Well, why does this feel like it's stuck in? Like it's got a bottom end of it. The white elephant. Pay no attention to the white elephant in the room. This one's going to have to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to, if I'm going to paint this, I have to take this thing apart because there's going to be enough of this white stuff that's going to be visible. Well, this might be a candidate for somebody who has snow camouflage. How about that? Where did I go to fetch that drink? Texas? Yeah. Dirty water, coffee water. Lost me on that one. Wow, this is like stuck. I think I'm going to have to pull this thing apart. Wow. It rotates, but it doesn't come out. Is this a different... Maybe somebody glued this one together. Made in Russia. It's got Primo on it, or Primo. Will not come off. Okay, well, you know what? You just screwed yourself, pal. All right. Go ahead and put the grass on the ugly duckling. How much of this stuff is left? I actually had to buy a new Elmer's thing. I was surprised how much it cost. Of course, I got a bigger one now. It was like freaking $8. Of course, it's going to last forever now. What is this? This is 16 ounces as opposed to what, 8? No, instead of 4. Okay, so maybe it's not that expensive. Yeah, I don't like people renaming stuff. I mean, it's fine if you rename it. I'm not gonna go along with it. I don't feel like I was perfectly happy with the name before. I was perfectly happy calling it Burma. And the Indian cities, and I'm fine if people want to rename them. I'm just not gonna learn them. What's to keep you from changing them again? Calcutta. Oh, it's no longer Calcutta. It's something else. Well, I don't know what it is. Calcutta and all those cities. I guess it's probably all little cities too, not just the big ones. All right, we're going to put some grass here. this thing is ugly. Just like I see books on the Eastern Front, and they have, and it's rare. It's actually rare to see this. Look, found it. Hiding somewhere it's not supposed to be. It's rare to see this, but I have seen books that use the German spelling for Russian names, and it just looks weird. It looks weird. I don't use them. Wales is doing the same. Renamed Snowdonia and Brecon Beacons for starters. I'm not going along with it. I have nothing against the Welsh. It's just too late, pal. There's too many books out there. You know, I got nothing against Indian people. I'm just not going to call them, you know, whatever names they have now. Not my problem. I've only met one Welsh person, and they're awesome. That's all I can say about the Welsh. I guess the same thing could happen in reverse to most people. You don't know anybody from a culture, you encounter one person, they're like a horrible human being, and then you think everybody of that culture the same way. That's not very fair, but that's how humanity is, unfortunately. You know, every culture, every country has people that are undesirable. That's why I always say about the French. I got a friend of mine who he can't stand anything French. And I'm like, why? What'd they ever do to you? You know? I don't want you guys to meet somebody from New York and think I'm like that. And I'm not talking about Marcus. Marcus seems like a hell of a nice guy. Or any big city, really. All right, let's get, well, I gotta put my glasses on to see what tufts. What leftover tufts do I have? I don't like these things growing out of control. Those, we got any of the bright green ones? We'll need some of those as well. No. All right, so we'll grab a few of those for mix. Here it is. Well, if Wales is renaming a bunch of places, hopefully they don't rename them and use even more consonants. Those folks need some vowels, for God's sakes. It's funny how you find one thing about a group of people. That's like the first thing I think of. When people say Wells, wait, Wells? Let's just, Tony, just go ahead and just pronounce things in your own fucked up way. Why don't you go ahead and do that? Wales, the first thing I think of is, no, not what you guys are thinking, because I'm not from the UK, so I don't have all that stuff behind you, you know. I think of they're guys that only wore one shoe. You know, the guys in combat that only wore one shoe. That's what I think of immediately. Your pet peeve is folks who pronounce that word, the Napoleonic Russian general, as Bagration. Oh, I've never seen that. That's a weird name. So that word to me is a French word, okay? And I see that word, and if I didn't know any better, it would be Bagration, right? And but somehow it's a Russian name, and I know that a lot of Russians have German names, but a French name? Is it not Bagration? I don't know. It's not my area of expertise. I would never call it whatever you just called it there. Bagration. I guess that's the Napoleonic version of cavalry. I'm going to attack you with my heavy cavalry. What is heavy cavalry? A bigger hill with 5 crosses on it? A mountain with more crosses on it. That's heavy cavalry. Yeah, I don't know why he's got a French sounding name. That's a pretty mild pet peeve, by the way. Well, it looks better. How could it not look better? This thing was just... I'm not a fan of this vehicle. I'm not a fan of the look of this vehicle. Let's put it that way. Oh, here's a different one. Different grass. Let's not jump that in there. That's the one from the Byzantines I was using. My pet peeve is pronouncing that Spanish general from the early 1500s, late 1400s, early 1500s as Gonsalvo. Like, what the hell, man? Where'd you get all them extra? That sounds like somebody that's Italian. Gonsalvo. Okay, well, this ugly duckling is off to quack around somewhere. It looks crappy in this light. I'm going to take pictures of this thing outside. It looks really washed out. All right, let's put this thing back where it goes. I'm actually going to put this half track up there as well, even though I got to put a machine gun on it. Let's just get it out of the way. See if I can find space in this freaking case. I don't have a pet peeve, it's just grumpy old man syndrome. You're not a grumpy old man. We're just tired of putting up with bullshit. Oh wait, that make me a grumpy old man? I'm not grumpy. I'm just tired of problems that we didn't have before that people just create now. Okay, we had this solved. No. What about this? Like, do you have nothing better to do than cause problems? I mean, it's not like let's fix on the stuff we need to work on, not create more issues. All right. I'll pull up my rocking chair next to yours. Okay. You know what? I'm tired of looking at this shit. I'm going to go ahead and do that since I even made a video on it. I'm going to take some of this hand sanitizer, put it on here. Let's get all this paint off. Maybe that is what grumpy man syndrome is. You've lived a life where you've seen lots of different things. You've seen issues that can't seem to be solved. They don't solve those. They create more issues. Like all this technology that we have, and we can't make stoplights that can't know when there's no one waiting on the other side, and yet they make you stop anyways. I don't mind stopping at a red light for other people, but stopping when there's no one there is just stupid. When we have all this technology, you can have rockets that can come back to Earth and land in the same place, but you can't solve something like that. Something so basic that everybody could get behind. All right. Nice. Like brand new, just like the first day it came from China. What is this? A piece of epoxy? Not anymore. I saw a restoration video while I was having breakfast before I went online. You know, you've seen those where they take something old and they fix it. This guy had taken a Luger that was, it looked like it was covered in mud, but it was, half of it was like gone. And he spent way too much time trying to fix that thing up, and it didn't look very good. It was in really, really bad shape. Really bad shape. Okay, so for this one, these guys, I am using only one color tuft, and I believe it's the one called Wild. Lowland Shrubs, yeah, this is the one that I ran out of. I ran out of that one, and I got some more at the store. I have so many of these things that I probably need to take an inventory of the different colors that I have. Okay, it is this one, Autumn. English Grass Autumn. I cogitated for a long time because that was my, I wasn't necessarily happy with how the basing was before. I wanted to be happy with it so we could move forward. All right, it's time for Paulette and Edward. And we have a new thing for them to be on. Kind of. Gamer's Grass. I'm sure you guys can get this in the UK. This stuff is made in Portugal, and you guys have a that perpetual treaty with Portugal. I'd like to get something back in the back behind her. Oh, what's this one? That's like perfect. I think that's one of the ones from here. It's the same color, it's just those are small and these are what they call wild. sure this fits in here just fine. I don't want to use static grass for this. I don't really like how it looks on the individual figures. Let's go ahead and pull this out as well. Gamer's Grass, Tufts top quality. I bought a load last month, yeah. I use all kinds. This just happened to be the ones. I wanted them to be green, but not like dying green. I wanted them to have this dead grass and look in some places. I think one of those could go there. And I think that's what we're going to do with her, okay? And then Edward over here. I'd like to cover this one up. There. Being a little bit more anal retentive with this than I normally would be. I want to cover up with those bricks. Just to give him one of these. It's funny that self-adhesive stuff just isn't good enough for, still got to put Elmer's or PVA or something like that to hold it in place. I think a smaller one here would do better. And then put this one about there. Right, okay. Stuff over here. Oh, that guy's complete. What am I looking for? This. Oh, the tiny ones? I don't have any of those. I know which ones you're talking about. I saw them in a store yesterday. Maybe a little bit more. A store that had all kinds of like blue ones or whatever for space cadets. Alien planet with blue plants. Panzerfaust Paulette. Don't fire that from inside of a building. From inside of a vehicle. Whoops. Backblast. Mishaps are funny and memorable when they happen in a game. I remember I was playing some colonial game. And I think I was playing the natives. And it's a colonial game like Explorers in Africa or whatever. 1800s, and playing the natives that had to like attack this column of explorers, and you had some troops and stuff like that. And somehow the ammunition wagon caught fire. That was fun. But again, a very light game. I don't mind playing very light games. I'm just not motivated to paint stuff for a game that's not very deep. I want a little bit more flavor. I particularly like you doing the basing on this stuff when this material is kind of fresh. You can push it into it as well, get a better purchase. Okay. There we have them. Paulette and Edouard. So now we're up to 7 freedom fighters. I don't know, are you really a freedom fighter if you're a Marxist? I don't think so. These guys aren't necessary. Let's go grab the other guys. A little taxi here. And this light really makes them a little bit more chalky looking than they are. Bagration was from Georgia. Not the place right around the corner from me, the Joe Stalin place. Is it Bagration? Is that how you say it? Okay, so here's the freedom fighters that are apparently fighting around the ruins of a brick building or something like that. They all seem to have those little bricks on their bases, which I don't mind. It gives them a little bit of oomph. Let's see, can we get this into the picture too? Where is it? Where did it go? Move it away. Oh, here it is. Yeah, not quite. So we're going to repaint this house. We're going to actually probably just weather it. It's just fine. It's just a little too bright for my taste by today's standards. Need some tufts. Definitely need some tufts on there. So looks pretty good so far to me. So you can just put these guys on something metallic, and then, you know, it makes it a little easier to carry them. They're not super grippy, but it makes a difference. It makes a difference. Let's just move these guys off to the side. I got to use the little boy's room, and I will be right back. 7 figures. That's definitely enough for 2 players. Definitely enough for 2 players in this game. All right. Let's grab our next candidate. Let's grab our next candidate. I like these Battlefield miniatures so much more than the SHQ guys. The SHQ guys just seem like they just don't have a lot of personality. Oh, I did get one of those. This is who we're doing next. I hope I printed this name. If not, we'll have to do another one. I did. This guy. This is who we're doing next. This is a guy I already named. I've already given him a name. I've already decided what his name is going to be. And this guy's going to be Guy. So you could call him, oh, it's the guy with a grenade. It's Guy. Because he's got a grenade. And along with a Thompson submachine gun. Lots of firepower on these guys. He's got like a suit on it. He's basically wearing a suit. So the first thing is we don't want the suit top and the bottom to match. It's going to look really boring. So, oh, are we getting to transom light time? Oh, that's going to be, okay, well, we're not going to be able to paint this guy because the light is going to come in here and really mess with my vision. Badly. Very badly. But this is who we're going to do next. Yeah, actually got it in focus pretty decently right there. It's a nice figure, got a nice face. That's who's going to be next. Alright, well I'm not ready to quit, so I guess we'll glue some parts on it, on the T-35s. And the T-20, no, the T-28s already did those. Okay, let's glue the parts on the T-35s. Instructions. Actually, I have 2 sets of instructions. All right, let's grab the spare parts off one of these things. Now, if memory serves me right, we put this like this. I've actually got to drill. Let me look at the one that I actually put together, because it was kind of, I had to solve an issue. I remember that. This thing's paint up really well, actually. Okay. So it's sitting on that edge there. Okay. It's funny, the white one is a little different. The white one has this thing a little bit more raised. I wonder what the deal is with this thing that it won't come up. And it almost looks like it was glued or something. Okay. Oh yeah, some bastard pulled one of these. Look what they did, they smushed the bottom of the turrets. So the turrets won't come out. Well, that's a no-no. We will have none of that nonsense. I don't know if this was experimental, but this isn't paintable if you can't take the turrets off, so we will be busting those things up. Be busting some heads. I don't care if I flip the vehicle off and the turrets come off. They need to run smooth so they don't destroy the paint job that I'm putting on them. And just like that, the white one's off. Oh, we're on this showboat. That one's off. That one's off. That one's off. Now the big one. There we have it. All loose. Now the interesting thing is, this actually has these little parts that I don't think any of the other ones have. I certainly don't remember them. I don't remember them. Okay. We're gonna do this one in the snow. F it, we're gonna do a snow camouflage with this one. Or, you know, a faded snow camouflage with it. coconut shavings. When I bought Elmer's glue in the store, they had a whole bunch of Mod Podge. What do you use that for? Isn't it like thick, almost like thick Elmer's? Something like that. Funny name. Sounds like something from the 70s. Actually, the way the styling on the package also looks like something from the 70s. Late 60s. Mod Podge. Mod Squad. That's what it sounds like. Used as a sealant for terrain mostly. Is it flat or does it leave like a semi-shiny sheen? All right. Oh! Okay. Can't use the vacuum right now. I don't want to wake people up and interrupt my playtime. You sound like a little kid. We all are. We all are little kids. More so for various foam types. Okay. The only thing that worries me out of the foam type is, you know, somebody leaning on like a hill or something like that and leaving like an imprint of a giant handprint. Okay. Good. We kicked that white one's ass. Excellent. Okay, back to this. Let's get our little matte or gloss. Okay, well, I may have to experiment with that with definitely flat. I saw it at the store and I thought about it. Can't remember if that's one of the products that the terrain tutor uses. Whatever happened to him? I know he was retired or something like that. I actually liked his videos a lot because that joker had a lot of energy. I'm a fan of people that are high energy. You know, if you're not excited about what you're doing, then why should I be? But he's got a lot of energy. Okay, let's see if this fits on here. Just like that, or we got a little tiny hole. Oh, hold on, it's actually like this. Okay, that fits on there fine. Time for lunch. Oh man. I'm perpetually hungry, so I'd love to go to lunch. Take it easy, Harvey. Thanks for coming by. We're going to use this same drop this in the middle. Just a little bit of an indentation. It's got these two little markings, but it's longer than the markings are long, so it's not able to sit between them. So let's go ahead and just take them off. Now, this can sit there between them. Okay, perfect. Okay, we can do that. Where is El Blue? Hey Phil, how you doing? Yeah, T35 is in 187 scale that will be used in 176 scale, and they work just fine. They paint up really well. Really happy with how they turn out. So I picked up 4 more of these at a show for $5 for four complete ones of these. One of them ended up just being a haul, and 2 T28s. So I've already built some of these models, so I know that I'm really happy with how they turn out. So that was really a selling point. I don't have any in the other scales, otherwise I probably wouldn't mix them, but these vehicles are so large that they don't really look that out of whack when you're using them for with 20 millimeter figures. Okay, so that part of it is done. What else we got on there? We've got a couple of U-hooks on the front and the back. Will these be defending the Ukraine, or are you keeping one back for Moscow? I am. I'm going to keep, one of them came cast in white. So we're going to snow this one up. This one will be for Moscow. The other ones will be broke down for the Ukraine. I'm going to paint them all differently. I like to, you know, people go, oh, you know, Soviet stuff's all boring looking. Well, you got to make it exciting to use. You can't make everything like boring looking and wondering why nobody wants to play Soviets. So there's one particular T-34 tank that I have that had markings that the entire tank brigade had the same markings on the side of the turret. You can't do that. That just makes it unexciting. So these will all look different. Maybe not dramatically different, but they're going to be different. So you can't make the Germans interesting, and then nobody else interesting, expecting everybody to not want to play Germans all the time. You know, when all this stuff is interesting. Exceptionally mechanical, fresh, fragile. Absolutely. Doesn't have a lot of armor either. And you can't really use more than one of them in the rule set that I use, because it just slow down the game too much. But I enjoy painting these things. What about the people that build 1/35th scale models and won't use any of them in any battles ever because they're a static model? It's kind of the same thing, except there's a chance that these will actually be used on the battlefield, on the tabletop. All right. That's it, other than the antennas. And I'm only going to put the antenna on one of them. I'll probably put it on the one on Moscow and one other one. So this guy's done. Let's move him off to the side. I'd normally be painting right now, but this light coming in through the window is a bit disorienting. Yeah, this is gonna get crazy here with the light. I got one scenario that has two of them in it. That's it. Certainly not 5. You could have a scenario where they're knocked out. I'm going to go ahead and just take these little nubs off. They keep this piece from sitting down there flush. Oh, I see, say the blind man. Okay. They do make an impression, or they appear. Their sheer sides tend to obscure their vulnerability. 2 in a scenario gives you a 4-way, 5-a-side soccer tournament. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, they make them in 1/72nd scale. Actually, S Model makes them. You could get them each for $10. So they're like $20, and you get 2 tanks. And I'm sure they're nice, but you know, I had one of these. The ones that I painted already were ones that I got in the early 90s at a time when nobody made this vehicle in that scale. And I was just sitting on them. So at that point, it's like, okay, do I do continue doing nothing with them, or try to just make the best of what I have? And that's what I decided to do. And they paint up really nice. Same thing with the T28s. But the reality is even the T28s, the 187 scale model of the T28 is longer than a 176 T34. So they still look okay to my eye. Are they perfect? No. But I already had them. I wasn't going to throw them away and then rebuy the same damn thing. Let's just do the best we can with what we have. And these 6 vehicles were, you know, I came to a war game show last weekend, and the guy was selling 7 vehicles for $5. I'm like, well, I guess I'll build some more, you know. I mean, once you got some that are in the wrong scale, what's the harm in having more of them in the wrong scale? Now, the problem is having one of these guys next to a 1/72nd scale vehicle. That would look way out of whack. But these have really poor armor, especially for their size. Too good or not? Yeah, and I already had some painted. You know, if I didn't have any, I may have not gotten them. But I already had 2 T28s that I painted and a T35 that I painted that I had a long time ago. I'm like, well, I'll be able to do them justice. That's for sure. So that's where we're at. Oh, I think these. Oop, let's not grab it by there, Tony. Or there. I think these are the covers I can pull off and paint. Well, we'll do that. What I did was, if I remember correctly, was do something like this. So when I go to paint this thing, you can get in there and paint all the stuff that you need to. Man, its light is brutal. So, and then just pin it back. It's actually it's a nice looking model. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it looks the part. Next one. And we're going to give one of them antennas, one of these. They do make them with a conical turret. I don't have any of those. Oh, well, this is strange. This one comes with some round pieces that the other ones didn't have. Oh, lovely. That aren't shown on the instructions. Might just be a mistake. Oh. Russian quality control, not exactly the best. we're in that stage where I'm shaking and things are falling off over here. One of my pet peeves. All right, you inanimate object, stop moving on me. And I really don't like having to jump around like this, but it's just the nature of things drying. You know, I'm not able to continue working on something because of drying time. Well, my preference would be to finish one thing and not start on something else, but it'd make for a short show. Yeah, some of these pieces are just, like the holes are great, but these other pieces, they're misaligned. Well, we got to the magic 1,700 subscribers the other day. I don't know how long we'll stay there, but hopefully we can make it to 2,000. We'll do something different and cool when we get to 2,000. Of course, it could take a while. It took a long time to get from 1,600 to 1,700. A long ass time, but you know, I kind of do what I do, and it doesn't appeal to a lot of people. That's cool too, you know. I'm not into everything, so. Oh, interesting. That's what the problem is painting it that this time is this light, which is wonderful, but it really disorients the colors. So it's pretty much have to wait for that to pass by. Got these from no one other than Richard Borg of Command and Colors fame. Bottom from the Borg. Yeah, this one should pop out also, right? Unless they glued it in place. They didn't. Good, because this is definitely one that we get in there and fix that up with. Okay, glue top and bottom into this one. I'll be right back. I see some people stirring around. This is my reminder to turn my microphone on. Be right back, folks. Yeah, that's why we put this on here. I think that's working so far. If I didn't mind writing on this, I'd say, Tony, turn the damn mic on. It happens. I have no producer. I can't watch me and be me. Somebody made a comment on Facebook recently, and what was it that he said? That was really disciplined or something like that. I'm like, really organized. I am and I'm not. I wish I was more organized. It's just unsatisfying to be incompetent. And unfortunately, we're all human, and there's a fair amount of it that we do. But I try to do things correctly. Sometimes it works out. Just like I had never put these antenna things on, and I kicked the living shit out of this thing last night, yesterday afternoon. It just played out perfectly, and this turned out really, really well. Something that in my 20s I wouldn't have been able to do. But tools and perseverance and experience, and you just get through it. Separate link track. I love separate link track. In my 20s, if somebody said that to me, I thought they were crazy. No, I just have different set of skills, different ideas of. One of the biggest things you can have is you start on a project, have some kind of a concept of how long it's going to take. Don't go in taking something that's going to be like, oh, I'll be done in half an hour. It ends up being like a 5-hour thing, and you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. Well, because you had this idea that it was going to be short, You don't leave to go to Historicon expecting it to be a 2.5-hour trip when it's like a 12-hour trip. It's going to be a long one, and it ends up being a long one, and you're okay with it because it meets your expectations. But if you have this idea that like, oh, okay, well today, and this happened to me recently, probably the most recent thing that happened that made me realize that, or kind of the thing that surprised me the most, is I'll have the girls and they'll go on some trip and they'll go out of town. They'll go out of town for like a week or something like that, or a weekend or something. And I'll always have these grandiose ideas. Oh, good, the girls are going to be gone, and I'm going to be able to do this, that, and the other. And you get back, and I don't accomplish any of those tasks because I have this false idea that I'm going to be able to get so much more done when they're not here, and that just isn't the case. I can get just about the same amount of stuff done while they're here than when they're not, so. Okay. This is the snowy one. I have never done snow anything, but I'm not scared. I've got the snow stuff to do it. I've got the whitewash stuff from not Vallejo, AK. Well, we're going to spray this thing green and then weather it from there. And it'll probably look okay to most people because the reality is the snow stuff generally looks like shit. If you do it right, it looks terrible because it's just a whitewash sloppily thrown on. But you gotta have some method to the madness. I go to shows and I like picking up people's toys that they don't want. I'm not interested necessarily in buying new things. I fortunately really don't need anything. So it's like, oh, what are these tanks? Oh, they're how much? Taking them. See ya. Feels good to put something together, finish something that somebody else didn't want. Or maybe something that's damaged. Or what I like to call second tier. Models that nobody gives a second look to. It's more exciting to paint something that's kind of crummy looking than, say, like a Dragon Models or something like that that's really well detailed. After putting a Dragon Models together, those little German armored cars, I'm actually not a fan of Dragon Models. They're a little too finicky, not very robust. They're nice, but these are going to be handled. The bases help that a little bit. Okay, and we're going to have an antenna on here, on this one, and we're going to have an antenna on one of them. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. For you guys that didn't see that, doing it live, and hopefully it'll go half as well as it did yesterday. That'll be really nice because it actually went pretty well. All right, so the first thing I did is I went ahead and attached this. I may actually not be able to do that. And let's just attach it there. It's easier than holding it in your hand. And let's make sure we can clip this one out because this plastic sometimes is very brittle. And that's like the first hurdle, is to make sure that this isn't too brittle. Doing this is probably along the equivalent of the separate link track. I'm sure a lot of people got this thing were like, screw that, I can't deal with it. And I wouldn't blame them, honestly. So let's just pull this thing out of here. See, it snapped there. That piece snapped right there. I'm not going to use it anymore. It's too difficult to try to put that on there. So let's use a black one. Is this one okay? Yeah, let's hopefully. These are old. These things might be really, really old. We have several, so, and we only need 2. I think we have like 4 and we just need 2, so half of them can be trash. Oh, look, snapped right there. It's just brittle and old. Okay. Well, maybe I won't be able to do any of them. That's okay too. Okay, so that's 2 down. Now, worst case scenario, won't be able to do it. Here's another one. I'm not trying to attach that piece together. I tried doing that with the antennas on the German armored cars, and it was a nightmare. And these things are really old. It just, plastic gets brittle. Not going to be remaking it with wire. Not worth it. I don't need to do it that badly. See, this one's already broken. Do I have another? I guess I could try doing one and see if it even works. All right. Let's get this white one out. I got nothing to lose. Yeah, it's just brittle Russian plastic. All right, so let's. Can't really scrape this, it'll create a problem. And yes, I could probably replace this with wire, but then you got to glue, then you have to glue the wire to the plastic, and I got to use glues that I don't like using. You know, I like using this thin cement. It makes it real easy to work with. You can adjust it as you go. Why is this one giving me so much trouble? I cut the other one out. That's really the problem with using a wire. It's gluing it. Nothing like using weld cement, man. This stuff is great. It's forgiving. You can adjust it before it dries. Actually have a fair amount of time of where it's pliable. All right, let's try it. See if this makes a little bit of a difference. I think it's just still going to be two. Okay, that's a lot closer. Nice, that one's nice. That was a good break. Okay, we just needed to use one that's a little sharper. Got it. Okay, and then this piece. Okay, so we got that. Let's take all these pieces and trim that little bit of flash and start assembling it. We'll have to mark the turret first. I think that was a big secret. Experience knowing that I better plan a little bit or I'm going to find myself in a sideways situation. All right. So I'm going to actually use this one as a guide because it pretty much nailed it where it was. And this was based on a top drawing, over the top drawing that I had. So we're going to have one point here. Another one goes here. Another one goes there. Another one goes there. One goes there. One goes there. That's about where the pieces go. Marked on the turret. Okay. With that said, everything except these two will be on the small piece. So let's put everything together. On the big one. Okay, so we're going to save 2 of these for attachment with this small piece. Okay, and this one. I'm going to feed it from over here. One. Two. Three. Four. And then from this side, 5. 6. All the supports are facing the right way they are. All right. Let me see if I've got this handy. See, the most difficult thing is putting your freaking glasses on and back off. On and off, on and off, on and off. And put that in the center. Because these two go to that side, the other ones go on this side. All right, so let's go ahead with luckily this plastic antenna doesn't weigh anything. If this was trying to hold up any amount of weight, it'd be a pain in the butt. I don't know why it's not gluing. This wasn't really useful at all. I just didn't want them sliding over there. Okay, and we gotta put these two right here. All right, one of them's gonna be right here. And the other one's gonna be over a little bit right there. Okay, now the hard part. There it is. The hard part. We're going to glue these things in place first and try threading them through there. I think that's going to be easier. Can't be done without tweezers. You get fingerprints everywhere. Now, let's make sure there's a tiny little bit of flash here. Let's take that off to make sure this doesn't catch on anything. Can't see anything quite down here. There it is. Let's get rid of this thing. Okay. Okay, now the link up. And if we can't link this up perfectly, it's probably not big of a deal. One time I tried to repair something and I put like the two pieces like on a piece of tape so it would hold it in place. That didn't work. The concept was solid, but the execution was not. I messed with those German armored cars a long freaking time till I basically gave up. And we're going to hold this in place here for a few minutes and see if that helps. Just make sure we go all the way around this. When you get back into working with plastic, one of the things that was the hardest for me to understand is I've got to be like really light on the touch. You can't just like grab things, you know, as much as white metal. You got to be like really gentle, like you're working with something that's made out of paper mache. All right, we healed ish. All right, let's adjust some of these things here. And that may unglue. I'm okay with it. I'll guarantee there was a T-35 tank that had that thing that was snapped. These all look pretty decent. Okay, now this is definitely not for the faint-hearted. You can't do this stuff with epoxy. Makes too much of a mess, too thick. Okay. Perfect. Now, one of these T-35s, another one, the one with a red star on it, I'm going to give another antenna in too. This one snapped here in the back. That's probably not a bad place for it to break at. What about this one? Is it not broken? No, I did have one more? Okay. Well, let's try using an unbroken one. Definitely not newbie friendly. I see stuff like this and I'm like, my younger self wouldn't have been able to handle it. I remember when I went to the hobby store around 1985, I think it was 1985, and I bought a 1/72nd scale Panther kit. I don't know who it was, but it came in a baggie. That's all I remember. So who made baggie kits in 1985? It was unsprue. Instructions, I think, were probably pretty vague. I don't remember who it was. But the hull was 3 pieces. You had the bottom plate of the hull, and then it went up. 2 sides that the road wheels glue into. And the 2 plates on the side were not flat. They were bent just from transport, being in a hot vehicle or whatever in transport. And I just could never get them to close in. And it's like, now it's like, all right, well, now I have epoxy, I've got rubber bands, I've got patience, I've got all that kind of stuff that I can handle now. I'd rather not handle it, but it's not going to keep me from building the model. And that's just stuff that, when you're a kid, that would have been 15 years old, 14 years old, I just wouldn't have the patience for. And that's the thing, I like working on multiple things at once, is sometimes you'll do something where it's got to sit for a little while to cure, so go on to something else. Not just, waiting for a pot to boil. And you can't do anything else. But I never mess with vacuform. I think that would be one thing too far. Okay, same thing. Let's cut these eight little doohickeys off. So the proportion should be okay. We've got we're going to have 4 T28s. One of them has a radio antenna. And we will have 5 T35s. 5 T35s. One of them will be in snow. And the other 4, only one will have a radio antenna. So I think the proportion is correct on that. Let's go ahead and mark the turret top. I think that was instrumental. Four over here. And then 4 on the other side. Jeffrey, could try converting a T28 to a bridge layer. Would make a great scenario laying the bridge under fire. Well, it's the T35s I have a lot of, not the T28s. I'm just kind of building them just kind of build them. There's a company, man, that I forget what it is. They're 3D something or another. Of course, they're in the UK, and they make literally everything. I bet they make a T28 bridge later. Other thing to remember is in the scale of game that I'm doing, you know, the game's probably only like a minute of actual time, so the bridge would probably never get laid in that time. Somebody was asking if I was going to do a Sturm Morris or Tiger. If I did a Sturm Morris or Tiger, it would only fire if it was already preloaded before the game started. Okay, I'm not really liking how it's catching on this one in particular. Okay, we'll screw with that later. All right, let's pick these spots where stuff's going to grab on. I'm going to put one there, another one here, another one here, another one there. Now, the more I do this, the easier it should get. Using logic isn't always the case, but all right, let's bring one of these all the way back here. Bring the other one close by. Can't do this without tweezers. You gotta have really small hands then. You got hands that small, there's a lot of things you can't do. And give a good handshake's probably one of them. Okay, now we're to the point where we've got everything except these that are incorrigible. There we go. Use a bigger hammer. Use a bigger hammer. push this on and seal that in place. Okay, here's the 3 command vehicles with antennas. That worked out pretty well. So. Okay, well, I'm going to